The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation by Mo Xiang Tong Xiu. An unofficial reading by Emm Wilde. Book 3. Chapter 12. Sandu, the Three Poisons. Part 2. The little boat flowed downstream with the current. It was some time before Zidian loosened its grip and transformed back into a silver ring on Jiancheng's hand. Having yelled the entire time, their voices had long since gone hoarse. They said not a word after being released from the binding, but immediately began to sail back to where they'd come from. They had no oars, so they paddled with their hands against the current. Madame Yu had said that he wouldn't recover from the lashes that he'd taken for at least a month, but in that moment Wei Wuxian felt like his ability to move was barely affected at all. He could push through the searing, stinging pain in the places where the lash had hit. With a burst of energy only felt by those on the brink of death, they paddled desperately. Finally, more than 2 hours later, paddling their boat with nothing but their bare hands, they made it back to Lotus Pier. It was already deep into the night. The main gates of Lotus Pier were tightly shut, and the area outside was bright with lights. Fragments of moonlight shimmered on the crystalline waters, where dozens of large, colored lanterns, shaped like 9-petaled lotuses, floated quietly by the dock. Everything was the same as it had been, and that was precisely what magnified their unease to the point of agony. The two paddled in and stopped when they reached the center of the lake. Their hearts pounded wildly while they sat there in the water. They didn't dare approach the dock, nor did they dare rush ashore to check the situation inside. Jiancheng's eyes welled with hot tears, and his arms and legs were shaking. After a long while, Wei Wuxian said, "Let's not enter from the front gates." Jiancheng managed an unsteady nod. Both of them soundlessly paddled the boat to the other side of the lake. There was an old willow tree rooted on the bank, with a thick, sturdy trunk that slanted over the water and branches that trailed into its surface. The boys of Lotus Pier would often walk along the trunk of this particular willow tree to sit and fish from the treetop. The two stopped the boat behind the weeping trails of the old willow and headed ashore under the cover of night and the willow's branches. Wei Wuxian, who was used to climbing over walls, tugged at Jiancheng. "This way," he whispered. Jiancheng was overwhelmed with terror and alarm. He could barely keep his bearings as he followed Wei Wuxian and pressed close to the wall, creeping low for a moment before silently scaling it. There was a row of sculptures in the shape of beasts' heads lining the top of the wall, which made it a suitable spot for spying. In the past, they had always been the ones being peeked at by people who had sneakily scaled the walls, but now they were the ones peeking in. Wei Wuxian craned his neck to look. Immediately, his heart sank. Rows and rows of people stood in Lotus Pier's drilling grounds, all wearing blazing sun uniforms, with flames embroidered on their collars, lapels, and sleeves. The flames were a glaring, blood-like shade of red. In contrast to those standing, there were also many sprawling and prone. The fallen ones had already been moved to the northwest corner of the drilling grounds, all piled together in a haphazard heap. One person stood with his back to Wei Wuxian and Jiancheng. His head was lowered, as if he was inspecting the pile of young disciples. Whether those people were alive or dead, Wei Wuxian and Jiancheng couldn't tell. Jiancheng was still frantically searching for the figures of Yu Ziwan and Jiang Fengmain, but Wei Wuxian instantly teared up. He saw a number of familiar faces in the pile of disciples. His throat was dry and painful. His temples felt like they were being slammed with a hammer, and he felt cold all over. He didn't dare think about Jiang Fengmain and Yu Ziwan. Just as he was about to take a closer look, to determine whether the skinny boy sprawled at the very top really was Liu Shidi, the person standing at the northwest corner turned around, seeming to sense something. Wei Wuxian immediately pressed Jiancheng's head down and lowered his own. Although he ducked in time, he still got a clear look at the person's face. It was a young man, about the same age as them. He was tall and thin, with fine, delicate features. His jet black eyes were a stark contrast to his ghastly pale skin. Although he was wearing a blazing sun uniform, he did not have the imposing aura about him. If anything, he looked a little too refined and gentle. The particular sun patterning on his robes marked his official rank as one of the Wen clan's young masters. Wei Wuxian's heart jumped into his throat. Were we spotted? Should we make a break for it? Or are we still in the clear? Just then, the sound of delicate weeping rose from within the enclosed wall. Amid the sound of footsteps, a man comforted in a gentle voice. Stop crying. Your face is all stained. Wei Wuxian and Jian Cheng were both very well acquainted with that voice. It was Wen Qiao. Wang Lingjiao's simpering soon followed. Will you not like me any more? My face is all stained. How could that be? Wen Qiao coaxed. I'll like Xiao Zhao no matter what Xiao Zhao looks like. I was really so scared. Today I thought that bitch would kill me and I never see you again, Wen Ganzi. Wen Qiao seemed to have hugged her. Stop obsessing over it, Xiao Zhao. Everything's over now. Thankfully, Wen Zhuliu protected you. Don't bring him up, Wang Lingjiao whined angrily. That Wen Zhuliu. I hate him. If he hadn't come so late, I wouldn't have suffered so much. My face still hurts so much. Ow! She was clearly the one who had previously dismissed Wen Zhuliu, ordering him to stay out of her sight. Getting beaten was her own doing, but she was once again twisting the narrative. Wen Qiao loved seeing her play the aggrieved coquette. No, Ow. Here, let me rub. It's fine if you don't like him, but you mustn't test his patience. That guy's got remarkable cultivation. My father said many times that he has a rare talent, so I'm hoping I can still use him for some years now. Wang Lingjiao still refused to concede. Talent? So what? Sect Leader Wen has so many renowned cultivators and so many talents under his command. Thousands of them. Don't tell me he can't do without him in the court. She was hinting that Wen Qiao should punish Wen Zhuliu to appease her anger. Wen Qiao chuckled. He might dote on Wang Lingjiao, but not enough to punish his own bodyguard for a woman's sake. After all, Wen Zhuliu had thwarted countless assassination attempts on him. Furthermore, he was a tight-lipped man of few words and would never betray his father, which meant that he would never betray Wen Qiao either. Such a loyal and powerful bodyguard was a rarity. Sensing that he was dismissing her whining, Wang Lingjiao added, Look at him. He's a nobody, just your subordinate, and yet so arrogant. He wouldn't even let me slap that you bitch earlier. She was already dead, just a corpse, and he looks down on me. Doesn't that mean he looks down on you, too? Jian Cheng lost his grip and slid down the wall. Wei Wuxian deftly grabbed him by the back of his collar and stopped his descent. Hot tears brimmed in their eyes. The drops rolled down their cheeks, splashing onto the backs of their hands and onto the ground. Wei Wuxian recalled how Jiang Fengmin had fought with Madame Yu that morning before he went out. The last words that had passed between them had not been gentle or pleasant. He wondered if they'd managed to see each other one last time, and if Jiang Fengmin had had the chance to say even one more word to Madame Yu. Wen Qiao was completely unconcerned. That's just him being eccentric, talking about how an honorable person may be killed but not humiliated. He's the one who did all the killing, so what's the point of spouting that scholarly stuff? Exactly, Wen Qiao agreed. What a hypocrite! Wen Qiao, who loved to hear her agree with him, laughed happily. That bitch deserved it, Wang Lingjiao gloated again. She used her family's power and influence to force that man to marry her, and look how that turned out. What good did marriage do? He still didn't like her. Everyone laughed at the forsaken wife behind her back for 10 years, and she still didn't take the hint. Rather than taking it down a notch, she just kept being arrogant and domineering. She deserved an end like this. Really? Wen Chao wondered. The woman was quite attractive. Why didn't young Feng Ming like her? In his worldview, there was no reason for a man to not like a woman as long as she was good looking. The women who should be spurned were the ones who were plain, or who would not sleep with him. It's obvious if you think about it, Wang Lingjiao explained. The bitch was too aggressive. She's clearly a woman, yet she went around waving that whip of hers all day and slapping people's faces. So ill-bred. Jiang Fengming really had the worst luck to marry a woman like that and be dragged down by her. Indeed, Wen Chao chimed in. Women, I say, should all be like my Jiao Jiao, lovable and obedient, gentle and adorable, and wholeheartedly by my side. Wang Lingjiao giggled. Listening to these revolting, uncouth vulgarities, Wei Wuxian shook with both grief and anger. He was worried that Jiancheng would go berserk, but he was stiff as a stone, as if he'd passed out from just the sheer weight of his despair. Wang Lingjiao muttered under her breath, Of course I only side with you. Who else would I side with? Just then, another voice interjected. Wenganzi, another building has been searched. The count of spiritual weapons is over 2,400. They are currently being sorted. That was the property of Lotus Pier, the belongings of the Zhang family. Wen Chao laughed heartily. Great, fantastic. Times like these call for a grand celebration. Let's have a feast here tonight. Make the best use of everything. Congratulations to Ganzi on becoming the master of Lotus Pier. Wang Lingjiao simpered. What Lotus Pier? Change the name, Wen Chao said. Tear down all the doors with the 9-petaled lotus insignia and have them replaced with the Wen clan of Qingshen's son. Jiao Jiao, come here and perform your best song and dance for me. Wei Wuxian and Jiancheng could no longer bring themselves to continue listening. They hopped off the wall, hobbling and stumbling away from Lotus Pier. But even after running a long way, they couldn't shake off the merry chattering of the crowd at the drill grounds. A woman's coquettish singing voice wafted cheerily over Lotus Pier, like a poisoned blade slicing their ears and hearts again and again. They had run thousands of meters in one breath when Jiancheng abruptly came to a halt. Wei Wuxian did the same. Jiancheng turned back and Wei Wuxian grabbed him. Jiancheng, what are you doing? Don't go back! Jiancheng shook off his hand. Don't go back? What are you saying? You're telling me not to go back? My parents' bodies are still in Lotus Pier. Am I simply to leave them there? What else can I do if not go back? Wei Wuxian tightened his grip on him. What can you do if you go back? They killed Jiang Shushu and Madame Yu. It's certain death for you if you go back. Then so be it, Jiancheng screamed at him. Go fuck off if you're scared to die, but don't block my way. Wei Wuxian moved to tackle him. It's never too late to take revenge. Their bodies must be retrieved, but not right now. Jiancheng dodged aside and counterattacked. If not now, then when? I've had enough of you. Fuck off. Jiang Shushu and Madame Yu told me to look after you, Wei Wuxian shouted furiously. They want you to be well. Shut up, Jiancheng roared angrily. He shoved him hard. Why? Wei Wuxian tumbled into the grass and Jiancheng pounced on him. He lifted Wei Wuxian by the collar and shook him incessantly. Why? Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? Jiancheng's eyes were bloodshot as he closed his hands on Wei Wuxian's neck and began to squeeze. Why did you have to save Lan Wangji? Overcome by grief and rage, Jiancheng had lost his mind and couldn't control his strength. Wei Wuxian tried to pry off his wrists. Jiancheng! Jiancheng pinned him to the ground and snarled at him. Why did you have to save Lan Wangji? Why did you have to meddle when you could have stayed out of it? How many times have I told you not to stir up trouble, not to fight? Do you like playing the hero that much? Do you know what happens when you play hero? Huh? Are you happy now? If Lan Wangji, Jin Zizhuan, and the rest die, then so be it. Let them die. What does it matter to us if they die? What has it got to do with our family? So why? Why? Go die. Go and die, all of you. Go and die. Die. Wei Wuxian's face was red from suffocation. Chung chung! The hands strangling him suddenly loosened their grip. Jiancheng leveled a glare at him, tears tumbling down his cheeks. From deep within his throat escaped a sorrowful, anguished moan of one near death. I want my parents. My mom and dad. He wept. He asked Wei Wuxian for his father and his mother, but it didn't matter who he asked. They would never return to him again. Wei Wuxian wept as well. The two slumped back on the grass and watched each other cry bitter tears. Deep down, Jiancheng knew very well that even if Wei Wuxian had not saved Lan Wangji in the Jianwu of Slaughter's cave at Mount Muxi, the Wens would have found a reason to come knocking sooner or later. But he couldn't help but think that if it hadn't been for Wei Wuxian, perhaps it wouldn't have happened so soon. Perhaps there would have still been time to salvage the situation. That perhaps was agonizing. With no outlet to vent them, his remorse and fury consumed him and tore him apart with grief. When day broke, Jiancheng was almost lifeless. He had somehow managed to sleep a bit that night, primarily because he was so exhausted from weeping that he involuntarily passed out. The secondary reason was his delirious hope that this had all been just a nightmare. He desperately hoped to open his eyes and find himself laying in his own room in Lotus Pier. His father would be there, sitting in the hall reading as he polished his sword, and his mother would be there, losing her temper and grumbling as she scolded Wei Wuxian for winking and pulling funny faces. His older sister would be crouched in the kitchen, dazed and racking her brain over what to cook today. And his fellow Shidi would be there, shirking their morning lessons and bouncing around. He did not wake up to any of these scenes. Instead, after being exposed to the cold wind all night, he woke up with a splitting headache and found himself curled up in an overgrown grass field behind a desolate little remote hillside. Wei Wuxian was the first to move. With some difficulty, he pushed himself up, hands on his thighs. "Let's go," he said in a hoarse voice. Jiancheng remained motionless. Wei Wuxian tried again. He reached out and pulled him up. "Let's go." "Go where?" Jiancheng asked, his voice dry and raw. "To the Yu-clan of Mishan, to look for Shiji." Jiancheng waved away his outstretched hands. After a moment, he pushed himself up and slowly stood. Both set off in the direction of Meishan, traveling on foot. Along the way, they both forced themselves to keep their spirits up. Their gaits were heavy, as if they carried a mighty burden on their shoulders. Jiancheng kept his head lowered the entire time. He kept his right arm pressed close to his heart, stroking the ring on his index finger, Gideon, the only remaining memento of his loved ones. He kept looking back in the direction of Lotus Pier, staring back at what had been his home, but was now reduced to a nest of devils. Again and again he looked back, as if he would never tire of looking, as if he would always harbor a tiny bit of hope. All the while, tears poured ceaselessly from his eyes. They had fled in a hurry and brought no rations with them. After walking half a day, they felt dizzy. It was clear that they had overexerted themselves, and so they left the desolate wilderness and entered a small city. Wei Wuxian glanced at Jiancheng, seeing his utter exhaustion and reluctance to keep moving forward. "Go sit down. I'll get us some food." Jiancheng didn't say a word, nor did he nod. All throughout their trek that day, he had only said a few words total to Wei Wuxian. Before walking away, Wei Wuxian repeatedly exhorted him to sit still and not to move. At least they weren't too short of money. They had a habit of hiding small change in various corners of his clothing, which came in handy now. He walked around and bought food and dry rations to provide for the long journey ahead. It took him less than an instant's time to grab everything, after which he immediately returned to the spot where they had separated. But Jiancheng was gone. Wei Wuxian, carrying an armful of steamed buns, biscuits, and fruit, panicked, for a moment before he forced himself to keep calm and search the nearby streets. When he didn't see Jian Cheng, that was when he truly panicked. He grabbed a nearby cobbler. "Sir, there was a young master about my age sitting here earlier. Did you see where he went?" The cobbler spoke around the thick thread between his lips. "The one with you earlier?" "Yeah," Wei Wuxian replied. "I didn't get a good look, since I've got work to attend to, but he was staring at the people walking by. The next time I looked up, he was suddenly gone. I suppose he left." Wei Wuxian mumbled, "Left. He left. He must have gone back to Lotus Pier to steal the bodies." Like a man gone mad, Wei Wuxian took to his heels and sprinted back in the direction they'd come from. The weight of the food that he had bought slowed him down, and after running for a while, he abandoned it. But he was dizzy and exhausted, and his panic aggravated his physical distress. His knees buckled, and he fell smack on his face into the dirt, tasting soil. An overwhelming sense of powerlessness and hatred welled up in Wei Wuxian's heart. He smashed his fists hard on the ground and screamed. Only then did he climb to his feet. He turned back to pick up the steamed buns that he had thrown on the ground earlier, wiped them on his chest, and wolfed them down in just a few bites. He chewed like he was tearing at flesh. As he gulped them down, they caught in his throat, and he coughed, chest aching. Then he picked up a few more and stuffed them into the folds of his robe, keeping one in hand and continuing to eat it as he continued his mad dash in hopes of intercepting Jian Cheng. He arrived at Lotus Pier with a bright moon and a smattering of stars overhead. Not once had he caught sight of Jian Cheng. Hands on his knees as he gasped for air, Wei Wuxian gazed at the brightly illuminated Lotus Pier from afar. Blood climbed up his chest and into his throat, a common side effect of running for a long time. The metallic taste saturated his mouth, and his vision had turned spotty. "Why didn't I catch up with Jian Cheng?" Wei Wuxian thought. "Even after I got some food in me, I could only run so fast. He was even more exhausted than me and had been dealt a harder blow. Don't tell me that he can run faster than me under such circumstances. Did he really return to Lotus Pier? But if not, where else would he have gone? To Mishan alone, without me?" After taking a moment to catch his breath and regain his wits, he still decided to head into Lotus Pier to confirm. As he stealthily crept along a segment of wall, a voice in Wei Wuxian's heart prayed desperately, "Please, don't let there be someone on the drill grounds talking about Wei Wuxian's body this time, or else what? What else could he do? Nothing. He was powerless. Lotus Pier was destroyed, Jiang Fengming and Madame Yu were gone, and now Jiang Cheng was missing too. He was all alone. He didn't even have a sword. He knew nothing, and he could do nothing. For the first time, he realized just how insignificant his own power was. In the face of the behemoth like the Wen clan of Qingchen, he was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, ambitious and oblivious to his own pitiable limitations. Wei Wuxian's eyes grew hot as the tears started to well up again. As he rounded a corner, someone wearing a blazing sun uniform walked towards him. In a flash, Wei Wuxian took him captive. He trapped the person's wrists with his left hand and grasped his neck with his right. In a hushed voice, he threatened with the most malevolent tone he could muster, "Don't make a sound, or I'll break your neck." The person was completely at his mercy. Wait, Ganzi, it's me," they hurriedly said. "It's me." It was the voice of a young man. Wei Wuxian's first instinct was to think, could it be someone I know, going undercover by wearing a Wen clan uniform? But this voice was completely unfamiliar to him. He immediately dismissed the thought and tightened his grip. "Don't try anything funny." I'm not. Wei Ganzi, you can take a look at my face." Look at his face? Don't tell me he has something hidden in his mouth that he's trying to spit at me. Wei Wuxian was on guard as he warily turned the young man's face to take a look. He was a delicate and handsome man, with an air of youthful naivete. He was the young master of the Wen clan of Qishan whom they had seen while spying yesterday. Don't know him, Wei Wuxian thought apathetically. He turned the youth's face back and continued to throttle him. Keeping his voice down, he hissed, "Who are you?" The young man seemed a little disappointed. I'm Wen Ning." Wei Wuxian frowned. "Who's that?" Inwardly, he was thinking, who cares who he is? Either way, he has status in the clan. With him in hand, I might be able to exchange him for Jiancheng. Wen Ning spoke slowly and falteringly. A couple years ago, during Qishan's grand symposium, I shot an arrow." Wei Wuxian burned with frustration at his hemming and hawing, and he raged, You what? You got a stutter?" Wen Ning flinched with fright in Wei Wuxian's grip, looking as if he wanted to curl into a ball and clutch his own head to protect it. Softly he answered, Yeah. Wei Wuxian had no response to that. Looking at this sad, timid little stuttering figure, a vague memory suddenly returned to him. The Qishan Grand Symposium, the year before last. Grand Symposium. Shooting arrows. Oh, there was someone! Wei Wuxian ventured a guess. "You're that Wen something, the one who was pretty good at archery?" Wen Ning nodded vigorously. That's me," he replied in delight. "Yesterday I saw you, Wen Gonzi, and Jian Gonzi, and I thought you might come back." "You saw me yesterday?" Wei Wuxian asked. Yes," Wen Ning answered. "But you didn't tell anyone?" Wei Wuxian pressed. I could never," Wen Ning exclaimed. "I would never tell anyone." It was a rare stutter-free statement. His tone was firm and resolute, as if he were swearing an oath, but Wei Wuxian still wavered, uncertain. Wen Ning continued, "Wei Ganzi, you're here to find Jian Ganzi, aren't you?" "Is Jiancheng inside?" Wei Wuxian exclaimed. Wen Ning gave an honest answer. Yes." Wei Wuxian's mind whirled as fast as lightning when he heard this. Jiancheng is inside, he thought, so I'll have to enter Lotus Pier. Should I take Wen Ning hostage? No use in that. Wen Chao probably doesn't like him, so it's completely pointless to hold him hostage. And is he lying or not? Isn't he a member of the Wen clan? But he really didn't sound the alarm when I came here yesterday. If I release him, will he betray me? Can someone so kind-hearted really exist among the Wen dogs? If I want to be absolutely sure nothing's going to go wrong, my only option is... The intent to kill flashed through Wei Wuxian's mind. He had never been one particularly given to killing, but ever since the tragedy had befallen his family, wrath and fury had been smoldering within him. Mercy or benevolence had no place in a situation as grave as this one. By applying just a little bit of force to his right hand, he could break Wen Ning's neck. As Wei Wuxian's thoughts swirled, Wen Ning said, "Wei Ganzi, have you returned to save Jiang Ganzi?" Wei Wuxian's fingers curled. "What do you think?" he retorted frostily. Surprisingly, Wen Ning smiled, though he did seem a bit nervous. I knew it. I can help you save him." For a second, Wei Wuxian thought that he'd misheard. Astonished, he blurted, You? You want to help me save him?" "Yes, right now," Wen Ning said. "I can bring him out right now. Wen Chao and the rest have gone out." Wei Wuxian gripped him. "Can you really?" "Yes," Wen Ning assured. I'm considered a junior of the Wen clan. There's a group of sect disciples under my command who can heed my orders." "Heed your orders?" Wei Wuxian snapped. "To kill people?" No, Wen Ning hurriedly explained himself. "The sect disciples under me would never kill somebody at random. I've never killed anybody from the Jiang clan either. I only hurried here after I heard what happened at Lotus Pier. Really." Wei Wuxian stared at him. What is he up to? Is he lying? Or just feigning civility? This is ridiculous. Does he think me a fool? The frightening thing, however, was that he was honestly beside himself with joy that he had found a lifeline. He harshly cursed himself. foolish, useless, absurd, outrageous, and fanciful. However, he was just one person, with no sword, no spiritual weapons, and there were hundreds and thousands of cultivators from the Wen clan stationed here, and possibly Wenzulu as well. He wasn't afraid to die, only afraid that he couldn't save Jiancheng before he did. He was afraid that he would let down Jiang Fengming and Madame Yu, who'd entrusted Jiancheng to him. With things being as they were, the only one that he could pin his hopes on was this Wen that he'd met a grand total of 3 times. Wei Wuxian licked his parched lips and said, his voice rough, "Then, can you help me? Help me retrieve sect leader Jiang and Madame Wu's bodies?" Without realizing it, he had also begun to stutter. He was mid-sentence when he realized that he was still gripping Wen Ning threateningly and hastily released the young man. He had a contingency plan, however. If Wen Ning fled and yelled the moment he released him, Wei Wuxian was ready to immediately split his head open. However, Wen Ning turned around and said in all seriousness, I'll definitely do my best." His mind in a muddle, Wei Wuxian waited. As he paced in circles, he thought, "What's wrong with me? Have I gone mad? Why is Wen Ning helping me? And why should I trust him? What if he lied to me and Jiancheng isn't even inside at all? No, it's best if he isn't inside." Before an incense time had passed, Wen Ning re-emerged soundlessly with someone on his back. The person was covered in blood and motionless, their face ghastly pale and their eyes shut tight. It was none other than Jiancheng. Wei Wuxian softly called out, "Jiancheng! Jiancheng!" He held a hand under Jiancheng's nose, still breathing. Wen Ning extended a hand to Wei Wuxian and placed something in his palm. Jiang Ganzi's Zidian. I've brought that too." Recalling that he had harbored the intent to kill Wen Ning earlier, Wei Wuxian didn't know what else to say other than, "Thank you," he mumbled. "You're welcome," Wen Ning replied. "As for Jiang Zhongshen and Madame Yu's bodies, I've already had them moved and will transport them to you later. It's inadvisable to stay for too much longer. You should go now." Without needing him to say another word, Wei Wuxian took Jiancheng and lifted him onto his own back. The first thing he noticed was the bloody whip wound across Jiancheng's chest. "The discipline whip?" Wei Wuxian exclaimed. "Yes," Wei Wuxian confirmed. "Wen Chao got his hands on the Jiang clan's discipline whip. Jiang Ganzi has other injuries as well." Wei Wuxian felt around on Jiancheng. He had at least 3 broken ribs, and who knew what else he couldn't see yet. "When Wen Chao returns and realizes what happened, he will definitely hunt both of you down around Yunmeng," Wen Ning added. "Wei Ganzi, if you trust me, I can show you a good place to hide." Jiancheng was seriously injured and in urgent need of treatment and rest. They definitely couldn't be on the move and missing meals as they had been before. Wei Wuxian saw no other way out of this impossible predicament than relying on Wen Ning. Just a day ago, he would never have dreamed that he and Jiancheng would have to rely on the Wen's help to escape. He might even have died rather than submit. But now, Wei Wuxian could only say, "Thank you." Wen Ning waved his hands. No need to thanks. Wei Ganzi, this way. I have a boat." Carrying Jiancheng on his back, Wei Wuxian found the boat Wen Ning had hidden and placed Jiancheng in the cabin. Wen Ning cleaned Jiancheng's wound before applying medical powder and bandaging them. Seeing him move with such practiced skill, Wei Wuxian couldn't help but recall how the young man had looked back when he had seen him in the Qishan Grand Symposium. It was the same symposium where he had scored in the top 4 for archery, alongside Lan Wangji, Lan Xuchen, and Jin Zijuan. Before the archery competition had started that day, he had been wandering around Nightless City by himself. As he walked, he passed through a small garden and suddenly heard the reverberations of a bowstring. Wei Wuxian had entered the garden through the trees, brushing aside the leaves as he crept along. He'd seen a young man in lightweight white robes standing there, aiming his bow at a target in front of him right before he had released the string. The young man's side profile was delicate and refined, and his posture as he drew the bow was both beautiful and perfectly correct. The target's red-painted center was densely packed with arrows, and his latest shot had joined the crowd there as well. To think that he had not missed a single shot. "That's some sharp shootin'," Wei Wuxian cheered. Seeing his shot had flown true, the young man pulled another arrow from the quiver on his back. He had his head down, about to nock the arrow, when he unexpectedly heard Wei Wuxian's unfamiliar voice. Startled, his hand shuddered and the arrow fell to the ground. Wei Wuxian walked out from behind the flower bed and smiled. "Which of the Wen clan's young masters are you? That was marvelous. Beautiful. Great shootin' there. I've never seen anybody from your clan who could shoot." Before he could finish, the young man abandoned his bow and arrow and fled from sight. Wei Wuxian was struck momentarily speechless. Then he stroked his chin. "Am I really that dashing? So dashing that I scared him away?" He didn't take the incident to heart, dismissing it as a curious sighting. The competition was about to start, so he returned to the square. There was a commotion on the Wen clan's side. Wei Wuxian asked Jiancheng, "How can their clans stir up so much trouble organizing a symposium? There's drama every day. What's the matter now?" "What else?" Jiancheng scoffed. "The number of competition spots is limited. They're all fighting over who gets to participate." After a pause, he continued contemptuously. "That group of Wens are all equally terrible archers. It's going to be like that no matter who participates. Why would fighting over it make any difference?" From the other end of the square, Wen Chao barked, One more! We're still one short! Last spot!" The young man in white from before was also standing alone in the Wen clan crowd. He looked left and right, then mustered up enough courage to lift his hand. But he didn't hold it up high enough, and he didn't dare to shout out his name as the others did. It was only after he had been shoved around for a while that someone noticed him and marveled aloud. "Qianglin, you want to participate too?" That young man named Qianglin nodded. Someone else laughed. "I've never even seen you hold a bow before. What are you doing trying to participate in the competition? Don't waste the spot." Wen Qianglin seemed to want to defend himself, but that person continued. "All right, enough. Don't try to sign up just for the novelty of it. The results are going to be officially counted. It won't be my business if you go and humiliate yourself." Wei Wuxian thought, humiliate? If there's anybody in the Wen clan who can save the lot of you any face, it's him. The disdain in the person's tone came too easily, and it incurred Wei Wuxian's displeasure to hear. He raised his voice. "Who said he'd never held a bow before? He has, and he's very good at it." The crowd looked at him with slight surprise, then turned their eyes to the young man. Wen Qianglin's face was somewhere pale to begin with, and suddenly having everyone's attention turned on him, it turned beet red in no time. His pitch-black eyes stared hard at Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian walked over, hands clasped behind his back. "Weren't you doing a pretty good job of it earlier in the garden?" Wen Chao suddenly turned around and wandered dubiously. "Really? You're good at archery? Why did I never hear about this?" Wen Jianglin mumbled quietly, I only just started training recently." His voice was soft and also halting, as if he was preparing for somebody to cut him off at any time, which indeed happened often. Wen Chao impatiently interrupted him. "All right then, there's a target right over there. Go ahead and show us. If you're good, you're in. If not, then get out of the way." The area around Wen Qianglin was vacated in no time. His grip on the bow tightened as he looked pleadingly left and right. Seeing how lacking he was in self-confidence, Wei Wuxian patted him on the shoulder. "Relax. Just shoot like you did before." Wen Qianglin gave him a grateful look, took a deep breath, and drew the bow. But as soon as he did, Wei Wuxian shook his head inwardly and thought, no good. Wen Qianglin had likely never shot in front of people before. He was shaking all over, from his arms to his fingertips. The arrow hurled forth and missed the target totally. The Wens watched him jeering. How is this good? I can shoot better than that with my eyes closed. All right, let's stop wasting time. Hurry up and pick someone. Wen Qianglin's face flushed all the way to his ears. He didn't even need the others to wave him away as he fled, mortified. Wei Wuxian chased after him. Hey, don't run away. What's your... Qianglin Jiang, right? What are you running away for? Hearing Wei Wuxian calling after him, Wen Qianglin stopped and turned around. He hung his head, looking horribly ashamed. Sorry. Why are you apologizing to me? Wei Wuxian wondered. Clearly feeling guilty, Wen Qianglin exclaimed, You recommended me, but I lost you face. What face is there for me to lose? Wei Wuxian asked. You don't really shoot in front of others, right? Were you nervous just now? Wen Qianglin nodded, and Wei Wuxian said, Have some confidence in yourself. I'll be honest with you. You shoot better than anyone else in your clan. And of all the sect disciples I've seen, there is no more than 3 of them who are better at archery than you. Jiancheng walked over. What are you up to now? 3 what? Wei Wuxian pointed at Jiancheng. There. This one, for example, he's not as good as you at archery. Jiancheng flew into a rage. You're dead. Wei Wuxian accepted a blow from him. Without even batting an eyelash, he continued, It's true. There's honestly nothing to be nervous about. Practice in front of others more often and you'll get used to it. Next time, you'll definitely make them see you in a new light. Wen Qianglin was probably a junior from a collateral branch of the Wen clan. His status was neither high nor low, but he was a timid, hesitant person with low self-esteem who stuttered when he spoke. He had finally mustered the courage to join the competition after much practice, but had blown his chance because he was too nervous. Without proper guidance, this boy might withdraw even further from the world, never daring to show his skills in the presence of anyone ever again. Wei Wuxian said a few words of encouragement, then briefly mentioned some key points that needed to be brought to his attention, correcting a few bad habits that he had noticed when he was shooting arrows in the garden. Wen Qianglin listened with rapt attention, nodding non-stop. How much bullshit do you want to spout? Jiancheng said. The competition's starting, so hurry up and get your ass to the arena. Wei Wuxian said to Wen Qianglin seriously, I'm off to the competition now. You can watch how I shoot in the field. Jiancheng impatiently dragged him away, clicking his tongue as he did. Watch what? You think you're a role model? Wei Wuxian pondered the question and responded in an amazed voice. Yeah, am I not? Wei Wuxian, I've never seen anyone as shameless as you. Remembering their first encounter, Wei Wuxian's gaze shifted from Wen Ning to Jiancheng. He was still drenched in blood, eyes still shut tight. His hands were reflectively clenched into fists. They first traveled by water, taking the boat down the river, then swapped to land via a horse carriage when Wen Ning was prepared. The next day, they arrived at Yingling. Wen Ning summoned dozens of sect disciples and personally escorted both of them to a large, splendid mansion with a courtyard. He snuck them through the back entrance and led Wei Wuxian to a small house on the mansion's grounds. Wen Ning had only just turned to close the door when Wei Wuxian caught him by the neck again, before he even had a chance to draw breath. What is this place? Wei Wuxian questioned in a hushed voice. Even though Wen Ning had saved them, he couldn't let his guard down around the Wens. He kept a constant eye on Wen Ning, and they'd passed quite a few rooms full of people conversing in Qichen accents as they moved through the mansion. Eavesdropping on a few isolated phrases that they had leaked through the gaps around the windows and doors, he caught the words, Overwatch Office. No, Flustered, Wen Ning waved his hands. No what? Wei Wuxian pressed. Isn't this the Overwatch Office of Yiling? Which unlucky clan's territory did the Wens occupy this time? What exactly do you want to accomplish by bringing us here? Wen Ning tried his best to explain. Wen Ganzi, listen to me. This is an Overwatch office, but I never meant to harm you. If I had wanted to, I could have gone back on my word last night as soon as I entered Lotus Pier. There would be no need to lure both of you here. Wei Wuxian had been wound tight and on edge the past few days, unable to relax for a single moment. His thoughts were confused and whirling, leaving him skeptical despite Wen Ning's reasonable response. "This is indeed an Overwatch office," Wen Ning added. "If there's one place that Wen clans won't search, it's here. You can stay here. Just don't let anyone find you." Wei Wuxian paused briefly before he finally forced himself to release his grip. He muttered a thank you and a sorry under his breath, then laid Jiancheng on a wooden bed in the room. At that moment, the door to the room suddenly opened and a woman's voice rang out. "I was just about to go looking for you. You better give me some kind of good explanation." Wen Ning had just told them that they mustn't be discovered, and now they'd been caught. Wei Wuxian promptly broke out in a cold sweat and moved to block the bed. Wen Ning was so startled that he couldn't utter a word. Both were frozen in place as they stared at the woman standing in the doorway. Or rather, the young woman. Her skin was slightly tanned, and though her face was sweet, it was turned up in a haughty expression. She wore a blazing sun uniform with flames so vividly red that it looked like her sleeves and collar were a dancing inferno. This clearly marked her as someone of an extremely high rank in the Wen clan, the rank on par with Wen Chao. The three of them stood still as statues as they faced each other, until frantic footsteps came from outside. Wei Wuxian steeled himself and was just about to make a move when the young woman unsuspectingly beat him to it. She slammed the door shut with a heavy thud, shutting herself out. "Chief Officer Wen, what's going on?" someone asked outside. "Nothing. My little brother's back," they heard the young woman say coolly. "He's feeling low again, so don't bother him. Let's go. We'll continue our conversation when we return." The ones outside the door acknowledged her command and followed her away. Wen Ning breathed a sigh of relief and then turned to Wei Wuxian to explain. My older sister." "Wen Qing is your elder sister?" Wei Wuxian asked. A little embarrassed, Wen Ning nodded. "My elder sister is very formidable." Indeed, she was. Wen Qing was renowned both within and without the Wen clan of Qishan. She wasn't the daughter of the head of the Wen family, Wen Rohan, but rather the descendant of one of his eldest cousins on the maternal side. Although they were distant relatives, Wen Rohan had had a good relationship with his cousins since they were children. Furthermore, Wen Qing excelled in both the literary arts and the study of medicine. She was highly favored by Wen Rohan for her talents, and often attended the Wen clan of Qishan's various year-round banquets alongside him. That was why Wei Wuxian was able to recognize her. After all, she was quite beautiful. He had heard somewhere that she might have an older or younger brother, but no one really talked about him, perhaps because he was far less exceptional than Wen Qing. "You're really Wen Qing's little brother?" Wei Wuxian asked in wonder. Wen Ning thought that he was astonished by such an unremarkable younger brother having association with such an outstanding, famous elder sister. "Yes, my Gigi is formidable. Not me, though," he admitted. No, you're impressive too," Wei Wuxian assured. "I'm just amazed that your elder sister is Wen Qing, the chief officer, and you still dared to bring us." Just then, Jiancheng stirred on the bed and slightly furrowed his brow. Wei Wuxian immediately turned around to check on him. "Jiancheng?" He's waking," Wen Ning hurriedly said. "He needs treatment. I'll go decoct some medicine." He stepped out and closed the door behind him. Wei Wuxian was overjoyed at first that Jiancheng had finally started to come around after being unconscious for so long, but he quickly realized that something was amiss. Jiancheng's expression was odd. It was too calm, much too calm. He stared at the ceiling as if he was not in the least bit interested in his current circumstances. He seemed completely indifferent to where he was. Wei Wuxian had never expected such a reaction from him. Sorrow, delight, rage, shock. None of these emotions seemed present at all. His heart leapt into his throat. "Jiancheng, can you see me? Can you hear me? Do you recognize who I am?" Jiang Cheng glanced at him and said nothing. Wei Wuxian tried asking him a few more questions. Finally, Jiang Cheng propped himself up on his elbows. He looked down at the wound from the discipline whip on his chest and let out a bitter laugh. When the discipline whip struck, no removing the mark of shame. Against his own conscience, Wei Wuxian said, "Don't look. We'll get a way to get rid of it." Jiang Cheng struck a palm at him. The strike was so weak and feeble that Wei Wuxian did not even sway. "Hate me all you want, as long as it makes you feel better." "Did you feel it?" Jiang Cheng asked. Wei Wuxian was momentarily taken aback. "What? Feel what?" "My spiritual power. Did you feel it?" Jiang Cheng pressed him. "What spiritual power?" Wei Wuxian asked. "You didn't use spiritual power at all." "I did." What did you say?" Jiang Cheng repeated himself word for word. "I said I used it. I used all my spiritual power and then some in that strike, so I'm asking you, did you feel it?" Wei Wuxian stared at him, falling quiet. After a minute, he said, "Try hitting me again." "Forget it," Jiang Cheng told him. "No matter how many times I hit you, the result will still be the same. Wei Wuxian, do you know why core melting hand is called that?" Wei Wuxian's heart sank. "Because his hands can dissolve golden cores and render the victims unable to form new ones," Jiang Cheng continued. "Their spiritual powers will dissipate, reducing them to nothing more than ordinary humans. And an ordinary human in a cultivation clan is as good as nothing. They can only live out the rest of their common lives, abandoning all dreams of ever ascending higher." Wen Zhuliu dissolved mom and father's golden cores. Once they lost the ability to fight back, that's when he killed them. Wei Wuxian's mind was in turmoil. At a loss of what to do, he murmured, "Core melting hand. Core melting hand." Jian Cheng laughed grimly. Wen Zhuliu, Wen Zhuliu, I want to seek revenge. I have to. But how can I? I don't even have a golden core anymore. I'll never be able to form a new one again. So how am I gonna take revenge? Wei Wuxian's legs gave out under him. He stared at Jian Cheng, who seemed to have gone insane. Words failed him. No one knew better than him just how competitive Jian Cheng was. How much he valued his own cultivation and spiritual power. And with a single strike, Core Melting Hand had shattered his cultivation, his self-esteem, and his hope for revenge to smithereens. Jian Cheng howled with laughter like a madman. He laid back down on the bed with his arms spread open and abandoned himself to despair. "Wei Wuxian, why did you save me? What's the point of saving me? To let me live uselessly while I watch the Wen dogs run rampant?" Wen Ning re-entered just then, carrying a bowl of medicinal decoction. He walked over to the bed with what appeared to be a differential smile on his face. But before he could say a word, that blazing sun uniform entered Jiang Cheng's field of vision, and his pupils instantly shrank. Jiang Cheng kicked out at Wen Ning, spilling the bowl of black decoction all over him. Wei Wuxian tried to catch the bowl of medicine as it overturned, and helped pull the petrified Wen Ning back while he was at it. Jiang Cheng snarled at him. "What's wrong with you?" Wen Ning was so frightened that he staggered backwards. Jian Cheng grabbed Wei Wuxian by the collar and shouted in his face, "Why don't you kill Wen dogs when you see them? Are you even helping him out? Do you have a death wish?" Although he exerted all the strength he had in him, his hands were still weak. Wei Wuxian broke free of his grip in no time, and it was then that Jian Cheng seemed to notice where he was. He scanned his surroundings and asked warily, "Where is this place?" Wen Ning answered from a far side of the room, "The Yiling Overwatch office, but it's very safe." "Overwatch office?" Wei Wuxian whirled around to accuse Wei Wuxian. You willingly walked into their trap? No, Wei Wuxian denied. No? Jianzheng snapped. Then what are you doing in an Overwatch office? How'd you get here? Don't tell me that you turned to a Wen dog for help. Wei Wuxian grabbed hold of him. Jianzheng, don't panic. It's safe here. Clear your head a little. Core melting hand might be able to undo. Jianzheng was completely deaf to anyone's words. He was half insane as he choked Wei Wuxian and broke out into hysteric laughter. Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian. You. Suddenly, a red shadow kicked the door open and dashed inside. A streak of silver flashed as her palm struck down. It was a needle, and it had been jabbed into Jianzheng's head. He immediately slumped downwards. Wen Qing spun around and closed the door. In hushed tones, she rebuked her brother angrily. Wen Ning, how foolish can you be? You let him cackle and carry on in such a commotion? Do you want to get discovered? Gigi, Wen Ning said in delight, as if he'd just seen his savior. Don't you Gigi me, Wen Qing scolded. I haven't gotten to the point where I ask you how you became so audacious. To think you dare hide someone here. I was investigating this earlier. No wonder you suddenly wanted to go to Yunmeng. You really are gutsy. Who gave you such courage? If Wen Chao finds out what you've done, he'll tear you apart. Do you think that I can stop him if he's really determined to get rid of someone? She spoke rapidly, but articulately, her tone so strong and forceful that it broke no argument. Wei Wuxian couldn't find a single opportunity to cut in. Wen Ning's face was pale as snow. Gigi, but Wen Gonzi, you did it out of gratitude, which is justifiable. I won't say a word more on that matter, Wen Qing said sternly. But those two can't stay here. You went over there, then left so suddenly, and they went missing right after. Do you think Wen Chao is that stupid? Sooner or later, they'll come looking here. This is the Overwatch office under my jurisdiction, and this is your room. If the others discover that you've harbored them here, what charge do you think that they'll convict you of? Think about it. She listed the stakes so clearly, it was as though she had pointed at Wei Wuxian's nose and told him bluntly to get lost, to leave, and not to burden them any further. If Wei Wuxian had been the one injured, or if it had been somebody else who had saved him, he would have had no qualms about bidding farewell and leaving right away. But it was Jianzheng who was injured. He'd lost his core and was utterly out of his mind. With Jianzheng like this, Wei Wuxian couldn't bring himself to leave. Besides, it was the Wen clan who had gotten them into this mess to begin with. He couldn't take it lying down. And so Wei Wuxian could only grit his teeth and keep silent. But the Wen clan, Wen Ning began. What the Wen clan does is not representative of what we do, Wen Qing interrupted him. The sins of the Wen clan are not ours to bear. Wei Ying, don't look at me like that. Every debt has its own debtor. I am the chief officer here at Yiling, but I was ordered to assume the post. I'm a doctor, and I have never killed anyone, much less had the blood of your Jiang clan on my hands. That was true. Wei Wuxian had never heard of Wen Qing killing anyone. Only the people hoped that she would take over their regions. Wen Qing was one of the rare Wens who acted and behaved morally. Her reputation had always been decent, and sometimes she could even put in a good word for others with Wen Rohan. Silence reigned in the room. After a while, Wen Qing said, Don't pull out that needle. If he's conscious, that boy is sure to throw another fit. I could hear all the yelling and shouting from outside. Pull it out when he recovers and leave as soon as possible. I don't want to deal with Wen Chao, especially that woman attached to him. The sight of her disgusts me. Having said that, she left the room decisively. She means that we can't stay for long, but we can stay for a few days, right? Wei Wuxian asked. Wen Ning hurriedly nodded. Thank you, Gigi. A packet of medicinal herbs was tossed in from outside the door. Put in some effort if you're going to thank me, Wen Qing scolded from afar. What the hell was that medicine you decocted earlier? Redo it. The packet of medicinal herbs smacked right into Wen Ning, but he was still very happy, and said, Any medicine my sister prepared is going to be good for sure. 100 times better than mine. Superb for certain. Wei Wuxian finally relaxed completely. Thank you. Wei Wuxian knew that the two siblings were putting themselves at great risk, one by turning a blind eye and the other by voluntarily helping them. It was just as Wen Qing had said. If Wen Chao was really determined to dispose of someone, then Wen Qing might not be able to stop him, and might even end up a target herself. After all, someone else's children would never be compared to one's own. With the needles securely embedded in his head, Jianzheng slept for 3 days. His broken bones repaired themselves, and his superficial wounds smoothed over. But he was destined to never fully recover. The lash from the discipline whip could never be erased, and his golden core could never be recovered. During those 3 days, Wei Wuxian thought things over. After 3 days, he bade Wen Ning farewell. He walked for some distance with Jianzheng on his back, and borrowed a small cabin from a forester. He closed the door and removed the silver needle from Jianzheng's head. It was a long time before Jianzheng finally opened his eyes. Though awake, he remained motionless, not even flipping over to ask where he was. He didn't eat or drink. It was as if he was interested only in dying. "Do you really want to die?" Wei Wuxian asked. "I can't get revenge, even if I live, so I might as well die. Who knows, maybe I can even turn into a malicious ghost," Jianzheng said. "You've gone through soul tranquilization, right, since you were a kid. Even if you die, you won't turn into a malicious ghost," Wei Wuxian commented. "Since I can't seek revenge, dead or alive, what's the difference if I make it alive or dead?" After that, Jianzheng didn't speak again. Wei Wuxian sat by the bed and looked at him for a while, then patted his legs, stood up, and began to bustle around. Evening came, and he finally finished cooking. He set the dishes on the table. "Get up. Mealtime." Jianzheng, of course, ignored him. Wei Wuxian sat at the table and picked up a pair of chopsticks. "If you don't replenish your strength, how are you going to get your golden core back?" On hearing the words golden core, Jianzheng finally blinked. "That's right," Wei Wuxian continued. "No need to doubt it. You heard me right. I said get your golden core back." Jianzheng moved his lips, his voice dry and hoarse. "You have a way?" "I do," Wei Wuxian said calmly. He turned around. "You've known for a long time that my mother, Sangse Senren, was Baoshan Senren's disciple." That one simple sentence lit up Jianzheng's lifeless eyes in an instant. Baoshan Senren, the cultivation master whose legend said to live an 800-year-old life, an otherworldly master who could revive the dead. His voice trembled. You're saying..." Wei Wuxian repeated clearly. "I'm saying that I know which mountain this Baoshan embraces. In other words, I can take you to find Baoshan Senren." But I thought you didn't remember anything from your childhood." "It's not that I don't remember anything," Wei Wuxian explained. "I haven't forgotten the bits that were drilled into my head. Among other things, I remember a woman's voice repeating a location to me over and over. The voice said that if I were ever to find myself in desperate predicaments with no other options, I could go there and climb the mountain and ask the immortal for help." Jianzheng instantly rolled off the bed and lunged at the table. Wei Wuxian pushed a bowl and chopsticks over to him. "Eat." Jianzheng clutched the edge of the table. Overwhelmed with emotion, he tried to speak. "I..." "Eat," Wei Wuxian said again. "We'll talk as we eat, or else I won't say a word." Jianzheng could only clamber onto the bench, picking up the chopsticks and begin to shovel the rice into his mouth. He had originally lost all hope, but with this turn of events, he suddenly saw the light at the end of the tunnel. He was so worked up with excitement that he seemed to be on fire. He could barely sit still and didn't even notice that he was holding the chopsticks upside down. It was only when Wei Wuxian saw him starting to eat, his mind preoccupied with purpose, that he continued. "I'll take you there in a few days." "Today," Jianzheng demanded. "What are you afraid of?" Wei Wuxian said. "Do you think the century-old immortal will poof away in the next few days? The reason I said it'll take a few days is because there are taboos that I must tell you about. If you transgress, and anger the Grandmaster, it's all over, and you and I are goners. Jiancheng stared at him with wide eyes, hoping he'd say more. Once you go up the mountain, you can't open your eyes or look around, Wei Wuxian continued. You can't memorize the scenery or look at anyone's face. No matter what the party tells you to do, you must obey. Okay, Jiancheng said. And the most important thing, Wei Wuxian added, if you're asked for your identity, you must say that you are the son of Sangye Sanren. You must never reveal your true identity. Okay, Jiancheng said. It seemed he'd say okay, his eyes reddening, to whatever Wei Wuxian asked of him. All right, let's eat. Regain your strength and energy, Wei Wuxian instructed. I have to make some preparations over the next few days. Jiancheng finally realized that he was holding his chopsticks upside down and swapped them over to gobble down a few more mouthfuls. It was so spicy that it made his eyes water, and he couldn't help but curse. Horrible! After being questioned repeatedly for details about Baoshan Sanren, Wei Wuxian set off a few days later with Jiancheng in tow. They trekked through difficult terrains and over rivers, and finally came to the foot of a remote mountain in Yiling. The mountain was lush and green, with beautiful emerald peaks and summits surrounded by clouds and mists. It did have an air of transcendence, but there was still some discrepancies between it and the sacred mountains that everyone imagined. Jiancheng was suspicious. One moment he suspected Wei Wuxian was lying to him, and the next that Wei Wuxian had heard or remembered something wrong when he was a child. And the moment after that he'd be worried whether they'd ever be able to find it. Upon seeing the mountain, he started doubting again. Is this really where Baoshan Sanren resides? This is definitely the place, Wei Wuxian replied with conviction. What's the use of lying to you? So you'll be happy for a few days only to take a heavier blow later? They had already had similar exchanges countless times, and Wei Wuxian accompanied him halfway up the mountain. All right, from this point onward, I can't go with you. He took out a piece of cloth and blindfolded Jiancheng, repeating cautiously to him. You must never, ever open your eyes. There is no predatory beast on this mountain, and so walk slowly. And even if you fall, you must not take off the blindfold. There is absolutely no room for curiosity. Remember, insist that you are Wei Wuxian. You know how you should answer whatever question you're asked, right? His ability to reform his golden core and seek revenge depended on this. Naturally, Jiancheng did not dare to be neglectful. He nodded nervously, and then turned and slowly began to make his way up. Wei Wuxian called out after him. I'll wait for you in the town that we came across earlier. After watching Jiancheng slowly shuffle away, he turned around to look at another mountain path. Jiancheng spent 7 days on that mountain. The town where they had agreed to meet up was in a mountainous region itself, very remote, and had few civilians. The streets were narrow and uneven, and there weren't even any vendors on the roadside. Wei Wuxian squatted by the road as he gazed in the direction of the mountain. Still not catching any sight of Jiancheng, he pushed himself up and stood. He felt a wave of dizziness and staggered for a moment before walking towards one of the only tea houses in the town. This tea house was the only building in town that was not simple and rudimentary. As soon as he stepped in, a waiter came up to him with a smile. Can I get you a drink? Wei Wuxian's mind jolted. He was exhausted, having been constantly on the move for the past few days. He hadn't had the presence of mind to tidy himself up and probably looked unkempt. It would be a miracle if the staff of a typical tea house didn't pull faces at the sight of him and boot him out at once. This man rushed over to greet him with such enthusiasm, and it seemed fake. He swept a swift glance over the tea house. The cashier stood behind the counter, with his head practically buried in the ledger. 7 or 8 people sat scattered across 10 tables. Many of them wore cloaks and were drinking tea with their heads down, as if to conceal something. Wei Wuxian immediately made his decision to turn and leave. But he had only taken 1 step out of the tea-house door when a tall, shadowy figure pressed in close and, in one thunderous move, struck him in the chest. He crashed into 2 tables, sending them flying. The waiter and cashier fled in panic, and the 7 or 8 people inside removed their cloaks to reveal the blazing sun uniforms underneath. Wen Zuliu stood over the threshold and stood before Wei Wuxian. With a pensive expression, he looked at him as he struggled to stand, and then at his own palm. Somebody kicked Wei Wuxian in the back of the knees, making him fall heavily to the ground. Wen Chao's face appeared above him, his expression one of cruel excitement. "Down already? You stinking bastard, weren't you quite the jumper in the Zhanwu of Slaughter's cave? Just one strike and you're finished? Go on, jump around again. Let's see how you manage." Wang Lingjiao's impatient voice rang out. "Quick, Wen Ganzi, chop off his arm. He still owes us an arm." No rush," Wen Chao said. "It wasn't easy to find this guy. Cutting off his arm will make him bleed out, and that's boring if he dies that quickly. Dissolve his core first. I want to hear him scream like that little bastard Jiangcheng did." "Then dissolve his core and then chop off his arm," Wang Lingjiao insisted. While they were merrily discussing their preferred methods, Wei Wuxian suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Sure, whatever torture you people have, bring it on." "You asked for it," Wang Lingjiao said with a laugh. "Still trying to play the hero when you're on the verge of death?" Wang Qiao scorned. Wei Wuxian sneered at him. "It's because I'm on the verge of death that I'm happy. I was afraid that I couldn't die. Torture me if you dare, the more brutal the better. That way I'll be sure to return as a malicious ghost and haunt everyone in the Wen clan of Qishan. I'll curse you all and not allow a single hour of rest for you." At those words, Wen Chao wavered. Descendants of illustrious clans such as Jiangfeng Main and Yu Ziyuan were nurtured by their families and influenced by their spiritual weapons from birth. As they matured, they underwent countless soul sterilization rites in order to minimize the chance that they were turned into malicious ghosts after death. But Wei Wuxian was different. He was the son of a servant. He hadn't been with the Jiang clan since birth, so he hadn't had the opportunity to go through the full suite of soul tranquilization rites. If he died full of resentment that corrupted his lingering soul into a malicious ghost bent on haunting them, that would indeed be a headache. The more torment he suffered in life, and the crueler and more drawn out the torture was, the more savage and unmanageable his malicious ghost would be in death. Seeing this hesitation, Wang Lingjiao hurriedly piped up. "Wen Ganzi, don't listen to his nonsense. It's not like anyone can turn right into a malicious ghost after death. The time and place and conditions all have to be right, but he won't be able to manage it. Besides, if he really does pull it off, don't tell me the Wen clan of Qishan can't handle a worrisome ghost. Haven't we been hunting him all this time specifically to punish him? Or are we going to let him off just because he's bluffing?" "Of course not," Wen Chao said. Knowing that death was all but certain, Wei Wuxian felt increasingly calm. The bone-deep hatred in him hardened into a determination as cold as iron. His expression made Wen Chao displeased, but it also made his hair stand on end. He kicked Wei Wuxian in the stomach. "Still pretending, huh? Who are you trying to scare? Stop pretending to be a hero." The sect disciples followed suit and pummeled him. It was only when Wen Chao felt that they'd done enough that he barked, "Enough!" Wei Wuxian coughed up another mouthful of blood. He thought furiously, "Time to deal the killing blow. Dying is all the same. It's no worse than living. And my odds of turning into a vicious ghost are 1 in 3. To his surprise, he felt incredibly excited by the prospect. But Wen Chao said, "Wei Ying, you consider yourself a dauntless man who fears nothing. One who is both brave and mighty, don't you?" "Huh?" Wei Wuxian sounded surprised. "So Wen dogs can actually manage to say something that makes sense?" Wen Chao's fist slammed down. He grinned nastily. "Go on, mouth off all you want. I gotta see how long you can keep up that heroic act." He ordered his men to seize Wei Wuxian. Wen Zuliu walked over and picked him up off the ground. Wei Wuxian strained to raise his head to look at the man who had killed Jiangfeng Main, Madame Yu, and who had destroyed Jiangcheng's golden core. He seared his face and his indifferent expression into his mind. The Wen clan group took off on their swords, with Wei Wuxian in tow. The town and the remote mountain gradually grew further and further away. Even if Jiancheng descends the mountain, he won't find me, Wei Wuxian thought. Why are they flying so high in the air? To throw me to my death from the clouds? After flying for some time, a black mountain suddenly broke through the layers of the snow-white clouds. It was wreathed in an ominous, deathly aura, as if it were a gargantuan 1,000-year-old corpse. Even laying eyes on it from afar struck terror into one's heart. Wen Chao stopped over this mountain. Wei Ying, do you know what this place is? He laughed cruelly. This place is called the Burial Mounds. The name caused a chill to creep up Wei Wuxian's spine. The Burial Mounds, right here in Yiling, Wen Chao continued. Your people from Yunmeng must have heard the name before. This is a mountain of corpses, an ancient battleground. Stick a shovel into any spot in the mountain and you'll unearth a corpse. Any unnamed corpses are also wrapped in mats and thrown here. The formation of swords slowly descended closer to the mountain. Look at all this dark energy, Wen Chao said. The hatred is intense, isn't it? And the resentment, too. Even the Wen clan can't do anything about it. We can only close it off and prohibit anyone from entering. It's daylight now, but once night falls, all manner of creature will awaken inside. When a living person enters this place, there's no coming back. For a body or a soul. They can forget about ever escaping. He grabbed Wei Wuxian's hair. With a nasty grin, he enunciated every word of his next statement. You, too, can forget about ever escaping. With that, he threw Wei Wuxian off the sword. End of part 2.